welcome on this Tuesday morning. Had to think which day it was. We're coming up to the halfway mark in the regatta. On behalf of Flagstaff Marine and our brands Beneteau and Excess, delighted to see you this morning. Great to see so many Beneteau owners out on the course. Most of you we know, some we don't know. If we don't know you, we have offices in Sydney, Pittwater, Port Stephens and Gold Coast, so come along and say hi. We've also brought our Excess Catamaran up for the first time this year. Stock standard, straight out of the factory. We're having a bit of fun learning how to sail her in a regatta, enjoying having a tussle with some of the other catamarans out there. Tomorrow, I've had quite a few people come up and say, can we come and have a look, Graham? So tomorrow between 9:30 and 10:30 on HIRW, we'll just do a little short open session. Everyone's welcome to come and have a look. Can't miss us. Grey hull, Excess flag flying on HIRW. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Speezy. The courses have just come out on your phone, Skipper, and wish you all a good race out there today.
Thank you. Obviously, we'll just take time to dissect what courses you're doing and all that. Obviously, the high tide's getting later and later and later as the week goes on, so the whole dynamics of the regatta changes. Just a bit of a recap on yesterday. You're probably at the stage of the regatta now where you know who your opposition are. You roughly know where your boat is. You roughly know where you fit into your fleet. You're starting to start with boats. You're starting to learn their techniques. You're starting to understand how the whole thing works. It's just a matter of moving forward and developing from there. And set your goals accordingly. So obviously sail within your capabilities. We had Rowan Noseworthy here yesterday talking about base trim. Talk to yourself, talk to your crew before you go out there. You know, we're blessed here. We know it's not like they're sending us out there, and we basically know what's going to happen. We know that isn't going to change. We know the islands aren't going to move. We know now basically where we're going. A little bit of housekeeping. I don't think that new exclusion zone went in at the aircraft. We're still obligated by the SIs there. And you saw yesterday how they moved the finish line back there, and that was due to aircraft movements. Just my own take on our race yesterday. I did a pretty poor job at the start. And when we got ourselves back into the race, and we were sort of right there or thereabouts, I have my navigator, or our navigator, Maritimo's navigator here today. We had to sort of a long converging line against the exclusion zone, which we all had to, or 99% of us observed. And it was quite interesting, you know, what bit different people's takes were it on and how far do we push it and all that. And you could sort of see that there was, I'll try to use the word correctly, you know, respect there for what was going on. It's a virtual mark, it's not a rounding mark, and some people just pushing there, trying to protect their air. Other guys just conceding early and all that. So that is going to come into play all week, probably lesser as the tide goes on because we start using the other end of the track a bit. Getting back to our day, it was we were having a reasonably good day. We got ourselves back into it. Bear in mind we're essentially in the one design fleet, and it was just we just missed one shift. One little shift really ruined our day, and that's all in one design racing. That's all it take, and then we're on the back foot and dealing with a bit more traffic than that. It was just eyes out of the boat. We just, you know, we had a bit of a plan, break that protocol, no problem. You know, you win together as a crew and you lose together as a crew. But it doesn't take much, and it was just eyes out of the boat, and just as a group we misread what the next shift was, and we paid the price, and so be it. You know, that behind it will get better and stronger today. I'd like to introduce our guest speaker today, Murray Spence. I've known Murray a long time, professional sailor, professional seaman. He ran the Alfa Romeo program for the better part of a decade, I suppose, Murray, for Neville Crichton, one of the high-end programs. A range of boats starting, I think the first one was the 90, went to 100, then back to a 72, all around the world. But Murray has been with us on, first of all, Cap Wincher, the 1904 built boat that we took to Hobart in 99, and then through the 54 and now the 52. And there's probably, I'll tell you about the new breed of navigators and all the high-tech stuff. Murray is still very, very au fait with that, but still very grassroots. And also very mindful of the old qualities of seamanship and everything. And all our advice that all the advice that he gives us was always given in a seamanship way. And I'll give you a classic case. It was reasonably well documented. We had all sorts of compliance issues before last year's Rolex Sydney Hobart race, and it turned out that we had to do the Melbourne Hobart, and none of us had ever done it apart from Murray and one other guy on the boat, and I'd never been down the west coast. And the breeze was literally going through 180 degrees, and we knew a shift was coming. It came through a whole heap quicker, and we're pinned halfway down there. We've gone from running down on beautiful sailing down with a nylon spinnaker down the coast. We could see the little bit of a change coming, got on the jibe early. Next thing you know, we've got literally better part of 50 knots, managed to get the spinnaker down, get a jib up, and we're on a lee shore, and we can't get the main down. Physically cannot get the main down. It's blowing that too hard. The jib's blowing out of the foil. I've got guys going, we're going to be on the bricks here, we're going to be on the bricks, but Murray had given me a waypoint that I knew I just sort of maybe had that 400 metres up my sleeve, that where if I'd came up and just luffed the boat like there, we would have dropped the rig. Anyway, it was just all done very much in an orderly fashion. Managed to get the main down to get 2 reefs in that. Managed to get the headsail, which had popped out of the foil down, and we had no idea how we were going to do it. And then that question was answered when the tack shackle just blew up. And I was just scrambling to get it and managed to keep it from going prawning. But it was once again, I mean, if he'd given me an absolute waypoint there, we would have been on the bricks, you know, on a lee shore and all that. We wouldn't have let it happen, but possibly just wallowing there without a rig. But it's just that seamanship thing where you just put that margin in when it's required, and when you're absolute racing in one design, you can remove it. And removing it yesterday was a classic case with that virtual waypoint of the exclusion zone. So, Murray, we've got an array of people here. Have you got a mic there? Yep. Not everyone has the high-end expedition, reading off the iPad or the laptop or the tough book on the rail and be able to monitor everything. They've got perhaps there. If you're starting not from absolute scratch, but the general cruiser racer, what would you be putting in this day and age?
Well, you can actually get quite a bit of information off your general boat instruments. Some of you guys are using Brooks and Gatehouse stuff as one system. Others have the Ray Marine. And there's quite a lot of information that you can get from the chart plotters as far as a bit more than your waypoints. Certainly with start line information, with feeding GRIB files, the weather files into the system, and using even putting your polars into the system. So you can do all that sort of stuff with just a fairly off-the-shelf setup. But then you can go to your next level up where you need some sort of computer, laptop to drive the software. And there's several different software packages that you can use. Over in France, they use Adrena a lot. We tend to use Expedition. It's pretty user-friendly and based over in New Zealand and does a really good job. But there's several different packages that you can use. And where these packages come in handy is giving you real-time feedback, as well as your pre-planning. You can put in your courses, set up your waypoints, get in your weather information in GRIB files. You can put in tidal information in certain parts of the world. There's companies that publish data that you can buy for specific tidal streams. They have packages here with Tide Tech for Hamilton Island.
Sorry to interrupt, just take us through, because we've got that, just take it through what that is doing for us now.
So that's just like you're probably familiar with the weather files, the GRIB files, gridded binary information files for your weather. Well, the software that these companies put out, or the data, is in the same format. So they've developed a model in-house for the physical geography of the area. They have the tidal data that's published by the Australian Hydrographic Office, and they are able to put that data into their model and generate these GRIB files so that we see a picture of the predicted tidal streams on the course. and it's a tremendous advantage to be able to see where the tide turns a little bit earlier on the shore. It might last a little bit longer in the centre, and it gives a really visual picture, which you try and have in your mind all the time. But it's a graphical representation of what's going on, expected to go on the water. And unlike the weather information, it's quite highly reliable. I'd say 95% reliable, with your weather predictions at 50-60%, that'd be doing pretty good.
Just going back to and we do use Expedition, so we'll stay with that. And you mentioned polars. So the Expedition also has in it just an option to be able to actually put what I call a sail crossover chart in there. It'll have some base models for some boats, so you're not pioneering. And you mentioned polars. Just if you could quickly explain polars.
So there's a lot of generic polars around, especially for production boats, for Benettos. They'll have different models, and they're a great starting point. The polar diagram is a prediction of your boat speed at a certain wind strength, at a certain true wind angle, and so it tends to be like a bunch of circles, roughly, that predict what speed you should be doing at a particular wind strength. By feeding that information into your software, you can feed it up to the helmsman, saying, okay, we've got 10 knots of breeze, and we're on the wind, we should be doing 8.2 knots. So it's a good benchmark for him. If it's got to modify that for the conditions. If it's choppy conditions, you might not be able to get that speed. If a lot of wind shear, again, you might not be able to get that speed, but it's a good aiming point. But it all depends on that information. And although you've got a base model, the more time you can spend fine-tuning that polar diagram to the real conditions that your boat performs at, you might find that you sail a lot faster than what the polars are saying, or maybe you can't achieve them, so you've just got to adjust them. So it's all about time on the water and fine-tuning those polars. And
then, we've obviously got Hobart not too far around the corner. You'll start running our weather models probably roughly a week out, and on Expedition that will say, and obviously it's updated depending which you'll do with 2 or 3 runs. You'll use the EC, the GFS, the 2 major global weather models. But it will actually even get distance. It will say what we're doing, what course we're steering, but what sail we'll have up. And then bring the sail crossover chart into that. It's only working on the information that we have provided or we have inputted into there. And we'll talk a lot. If we've got a new sail going on the boat, we think, hang on, we can increase the range of that sail and the shading will sort of show out there. And then that'll keep updating there. It's always work in progress, Murray.
Yes, and that's the area that your sailmaker will be able to help you with. If you buy a new sail, they'll be able to give you some heads up of what's the limit, the upper limit, what's the lower limit that you should be using it. How close to the wind can you take it, how deep can you run with it. All that information should be able to be given to you by the sailmaker, and then it's just plugging that into that diagram, working out where the overlap is, and using that information with your routing.
We had to drop we're restricted on the sails we can carry under the IRC rule. Most of you guys in performance and that are clearly not. So we actually have a limit on our rating certificate of the spinnakers we carry. We had to drop 2 spinnakers off our, to pull 2 arrows out of our quiver before the regatta started, and we had to preempt what was there. And we did a lot of sail. When I say a lot, we haven't done near enough, but we had a day sail testing in Sydney before the Sydney Gold Coast race, where we had 2 sails, neither of which we'd seen, being a Code 0 and an A3, both laminate spinnakers. And we didn't know where they'd cut in and cut out. Now we had a much clearer idea. We had a day just, albeit on Sydney Harbour, just trying it, working out the numbers, logging those, and then we've adjusted those accordingly. And in this tour, we've left the code elected to thinking what would happen, thinking 7 days ahead, dropping a brand new code 0 out of the inventory and leaving an A3 in. So it is always work in progress. Any quick questions for Murray?
Roger Bantam, Clouds. I would suggest you recommend to some of the people here that don't know him that if they haven't got all this scientific equipment, Roger gives a pretty hour-by-hour prediction of the weather and the direction while we're here, and you can usually plan around that quite. I've been checking his speed on the race daily, which the last couple of days he's been pretty accurate.
Yeah, and that's quite a valid point. The weather that we've got and given freely to competitors is produced by Ken Back, former Sydney Hobart race-winning navigator, and he's been doing it for the island or the full race week for a few years. We've actually also get from Clouds from Roger Badham, and that's a subscription-only service. And it's amazing how this year, how the two models are actually coming up, so closely aligned. I think we've got another guest speaker here, have we, today? All right, a big round of applause for Murray. They don't get much better, and thank you very much.
Just before we get Jimmy up, question I've had 3 people ask me now. If we're out sailing and we see a competitor of ours go through the exclusion zone, should we advise the sailing office? What's the protocol?
This is unofficial. I got cornered when I was coming off my boat the other day. A guy I know said there was a guy well and truly inside it. What do I do? And unfortunately, I don't have a jury member here. He was advised that he had to go through the protest procedure. It sounds unpleasant, but that protest was thrown out because he hadn't advised. You're still somewhat, not restricted. You're obligated to follow the preliminaries and the protocols of protesting. You've got to let the competitor know at the first available opportunity. The jury will ask, how did you do that? Well, if you've crossed tax with him, you'd have to let him know. I think you're still obligated to fly the flag. So just because it might appear to you to be an obvious thing, and theoretically he should retire. I mean, there was one boat there yesterday that was, I'm sure we all saw it, that probably didn't have any navigation equipment at all, but it was quite clearly not just skirting the edges. And it's quite interesting yesterday, we had guys, that's the imaginary line, like we were, 50, 100 metres to leeward of it, and these guys clearly just pushing the gauntlet for performance-wise, and I don't know where they draw the line, and you've got to live with yourself with it, and it is hard, but it was pretty obvious where it is. We could see the big boats had started 5 minutes ahead of us. They probably put 20 miles ahead of us. You could see Andu and or Comanche and Wild Oats turning the corner there, so we all knew roughly where it was. You could just see a distinct when we're coming either out of Dent Passage or from the top end of Pine, where you got 30 or 40 boats converging there. There was quite a distinct point there. But unfortunately, it's something that shouldn't be pushed. But to get redress from it or satisfaction from it, you do have to. I advise that you do have to go through the protesting procedure.
Okay.
And I can tell you, if they do get a valid case, the jury will not be sympathetic. But it's got to be proven. So.
Okay, we're going to ask Jimmy just to come up and talk.
Yeah,
quickly.
please, mate. More important than me. Hey, have a good day out in the water, guys. As I said, it's not a whole heap to talk about, a little bit less pressure. This is more important than anything we say here. Hey, brother.
G'day, Speezy. How are you, mate?
Good, mate.
Over to you, Jim. You go.
Yeah, your day.
I'll
Introduce yourself, mate.
Okay. I'll try and be quick, but my name's Scott, or Jimmy. We're back for the 6th year doing skin checks upstairs at the Robert Oatley College. Bloody good to see you all again. Magic to be here. I just wanted to quickly say that because you've all done such a good job of spreading the word about all this, it's completely booked out already. So if you missed out on booking in, you can still maybe get a skin check. Come upstairs and see us and we'll put your name down on a list. But I'll redirect the website, which you scan at the front door there, to go to a little form so we can get your details just in case. But yeah, completely booked out already, which is amazing. So well done. And we've already found over 120 suspect lesions, which is pretty massive. And I think we've only done about 300 people. So very good to be here. And don't worry, if you do find something, it's better to find it early. So thank you again. And
No, thanks you. I can jump in here. A couple of years ago, I just went in and I've got a couple of bad scars on the back of my leg there, and it was picked up here. Unfortunately, didn't get much further. Our race director, Dennis Thompson, he missed the boat in a few instances and has been dealing with the repercussions ever since. Really, really important. As I said, this is great, but this is vital. Big round of applause to Jimmy.
And one other thing, Peter's still looking for a couple of volunteers for a head cam. So if you want to get a video of you sailing on board your boat, come see Peter sitting here in the chair. He'll fit you up with a head cam. All right, thank you, Speezy.